Coming up tonight, going to be a good one. Knicks at the Celtics game 2. Boston favored by 10.5. Looking to even up the series. That game will tip off at 4 on TNT. At 6:30 on TNT, the Nuggets and Thunder from Oklahoma City. Thunder favored by 10.5. OKC looks to even up their series after dropping game 1 following Aaron Gordon's game-winning 3 with 2.8 seconds remaining. From the NFL, the Cowboys have acquired Steelers wideout George Pickens for multiple picks, including a third-rounder in next year's draft. Longtime Utah quarterback Cam Rising retiring from football after suffering multiple injuries. Rip City Drive with Chad Doings coming up next. We'll go to the Bay Area at 4:20, and we'll talk Nuggets at 5:20 with Ryan Edwards.
It's time for the Rip City Drive. Brought to you by Goldberg Jones. Divorce for Men. Call 1-800-DIVORCE. Featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Doing.
4 seconds to go. Haliburton for 3. 3 ball up top. Indiana by 1. 1 and 1/10 seconds to go. Inbound. Merrill didn't get it off. And this rivals the Milwaukee finish.
You have got to be kidding me.
Crossover dribble, chest pass to Hield. He's open for 3. Bang! Buddy Love. Another big bucket for Buddy Love. And the Warriors back up by 12. He's got 24 points.
You know, he's obviously crushed, but, you know, the guys picked him up and played a great game. And obviously we're all concerned about Steph, but it's part of the game. You just... guys get hurt and you move on. Our guys did a great job of moving on and getting a great win, 48 hours after a Game 7 road win. It's an amazing group of guys. These guys they compete and they're together. We've been the best defense in the league since the Jimmy trade, and that's what's keeping us afloat right now.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
Yeah, fabulous song. What's up, my friends? Chad Doing with you on this Wednesday, and we have a lot of good things to talk about today. First off, you can reach out to me if you would like. I'll give you 3 options. One, you can call the program and be a part of the show, 503-248-0620. You can reach out to me on social media, at Chad and Rip City, and I just posted videos from Forest Hills Golf Course, which were spectacular because the weather yesterday was so nice. So I give you a good look at a couple of different holes. Or if you just want to text me, you can reach out to me direct, 360-281-5473. That right there is my cell number. I always think it's funny when people are so protective of their phone numbers. I just give mine out over the air. So if you want to reach out to me directly to talk about whatever you want to talk about, then you could do so, 360-281-5473. Unlike the majority of people in the media, I actually like people. I love to communicate with people, so reach out to me directly. And plus, it solves the big issue of there's all these different, social media outlets now with DMs, direct messaging. I can't keep up with everything. You got the IG, you've got Facebook, the Messenger, you've got DMs on X. It's too much. I would rather just streamline all of that and just have you reach out to me on my phone. So if you want to reach out to me directly, I just gave you access. You have my digits now, okay? So take advantage of that. We have a couple of giveaways today. I've got a 4-pack of tickets where you can sit in the Rip City Radio row and check out some Hillsboro hops. So we're going to give those away today. And then also, I've got some tickets for you, a pair of tickets for the Brothers Osborne, August 1st at the Clark County Fairgrounds. And you can get tickets now at clarkcountyfair.com. And we want to take care of you. Basically, I'm here to help people. So if you want tickets, I have that. If you want to reach out to me directly and let me know how terrible I am at my job, you've got that number. And coming up on the show at 4:20, we're going to head down to the Bay Area. We're going to talk with Evan Giddings from 95.7 The Game. We'll get his take on the injury to Steph Curry. And the good thing about social media now is that it's a big deal when all the doctors chime in on different injuries in sport. So at least you can have some experts giving you their opinion on what that injury means. Because I got to be honest with you, when they start talking about grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, or high ankle sprain or whatever that is, I'm not a doctor. So I really don't know what it means. What I need to know is, what does that mean in terms of timetable? Is he going to be back in this series? Is he done for the next game? Is he going to be back during the playoffs? Well, we got some details on that we'll dig into here in just a moment. So Evan Giddings at 4:20. And then at 5:20, we're going to head to Denver and get a little preview of the Nuggets and Thunder, which are coming up tonight at 6:30. Ryan Edwards from 850 KOA will join the show. We'll get his take on what we saw in Game 1. Nikola Jokic basically being a freak. And I know that he's not going to win the MVP, but with each game he plays, it's really hard to not make a case that he should be the MVP again. And you know where I stand on MVP awards. I don't give a flying rip how often a guy wins the award. If he is the best player, you should probably vote for him. I thought the 2 years were, who were they? The fat boy, Charles Barkley, and then Karl Malone. Two players that I adored and thought were great. They got the award over Michael Jordan during his run to championships. Now, I don't have a problem with Karl Malone or Charles Barkley. They're both all-time greats. But they weren't better than MJ the year they won the MVP. So that's all. Just vote for Jokic. It's pretty clear that he is by far the best player on the planet. And what he did in Game 1 was great. 42 points, 22 rebounds, and 6 assists. Settle down, big boy. He's crazy. He's so good. I think Shai Gilgeous is a terrific player as well. But if you're going to tell me that he's an MVP and it's not Jokic, then it's problematic to me. Now, I do agree Oklahoma City had the better year. They won 68 games, and they were the most dominant regular season team in history on the basis of point differential. And teams that have been that dominant in point differential typically win championships. But for Jokic to raise his level of play and to do so in turmoil, that's usually when you get a pretty good indication of how great a player is. And heck, now he's like not just playing at a high level, he's coaching at a high level, taking over timeouts, talking to the team. And there are some young guys with inexperience, so they probably do need a good talking to from Jokic. Like, that's a guy I would listen to. He's one of those guys where, like, he's always balling out of his backside. So how can you not listen to Jokic? It's his team. And he's going to lead by example. And if you're in the right place, he'll find you. So I'm excited about those games tonight. I mean, I feel like on the surface, I would be stunned if the Celtics don't annihilate the Knicks, meaning they'll hit a bunch of threes tonight, probably 20 or more. And then I would be shocked if Denver somehow won Game 2. But I'll tell you what, if one of those two home teams jack around and then all of a sudden they find themselves in a close game in the fourth, you know what happens to the old Spinkter when you get in that type of situation after you've dropped the first game at home? You get a little bit tight and you might start to feel a little bit of stress. You don't want to be in that situation because if you drop the first two games at home, you're done. And unfortunately for the Cavs, with injuries and the way they got punked at the end of that game, they're done. Bye-bye. You don't lose the first two games at home and recuperate from that. That's just a recipe for disaster. And it sucks that you have a season like the Cavs did with 60-plus wins and you were dominant in the opening round, but then all of a sudden three guys are out and you get punked in your first two games at home. They're not going to recover from that. That season, as great as it was, gets washed down the drain with an injury. And that's what leads me to Steph Curry. What a great game. Remember what I talked about yesterday before the game? I wanted to know, and I was curious to see who had the advantage in Game 1. Minnesota, who was coming off the beatdown of the Lakers in round 1, but they had like a week off. So they were rested, they were mentally reset, but they were coming in at home against a team that was coming through a 7-game bloodbath against the Rockets. So in some cases, you would think that the rest would be the best case scenario. And I'll always take rest over not rest. But the Warriors, having just come out of a battle, they were battle tested. They were mentally kind of engaged to that type of battle. You know, and they came out and played like it in Game 1. I thought their defense was sensational. They have had the best defensive rating since the acquisition of Jimmy Butler. And I think last night you had a good example of why Steve Kerr is top 2 coaches in the NBA. It's he and Spoelstra. Steve Kerr's a great coach, and I know there's a lot of Warriors stands who like to criticize Steve Kerr for his rotations or his use of this player or that player or not wanting to play Kuminga. But make no mistake about it, Steve Kerr is a great coach. I had a chance to cover him when he took over down in Golden State for Mark Jackson, and he's a great communicator. He's not afraid. He's comfortable in his own skin, so he brings in great assistance, and he's done that from the get-go. And he knows how to get through and relate to his players, and he's got a system on both ends of the floor that the players understand where they need to be, how they need to operate, and they buy in. And I thought last night what we saw from Kerr with the injury to Steph Curry earlier in the game, his willingness to use and play just about everyone on the roster. And he got good contributions from multiple guys on the roster, and they got a big-time win in Game 1. Most importantly, they got great contributions early from guys like Draymond Green on offense. We saw a good effort from Jimmy Butler, Brandon Pajinski, multiple guys stepping up to make shots, and they built a nice early lead. And so it took the pressure off of them when Curry exited the game because they're up double digits. And so what he could tell his guys is like, look, you don't have to take the game over. I just need all of you to make a contribution, to come up with a play. And I think they played relaxed enough to get the job done. But their defense is terrific. And Draymond last night was in control of his emotions, making plays defensively, directing traffic out there. And then Jimmy Butler's just got large cojones. He's a big-time player. He's been in this situation before. He can carry a team, and he can create his own shot. I just thought they played really well, and I thought the Timberwolves looked out of sorts, like a team that had been off for a week, right? They didn't play good offense. They put up a lot of bad shots. The only guy that had some kind of a rhythm going on was Naz Reid. Anthony Edwards was basically terrible. Didn't finish well, didn't shoot well. They tried to set the NBA back by about 100 years with their offense last night. So the problem is now for the Warriors, they're not going to have Steph Curry. Now, the injury, according to what I read from multiple doctors on a grade 1 strain of the hamstring, the expected recuperation time for a player and an athlete at the level of Curry is 7 to 10 days, meaning he's going to miss multiple games in this series, and he may not be back this series. I don't know if the Warriors can recover from that. Now, they're going to need everyone else to step up. But the good thing is, here's where they have an advantage. They're not going to lose anything defensively with Curry out of the lineup. They're still great defensively. And Jimmy Butler will be the go-to guy and carry the bulk on offense. They'll need other guys to step up, and Steve Kerr will be willing to play them, but it's going to be a tough road. And I'll be honest with you, I feel horrible for Steph Curry. And the reason why is very simple. You know, this year, when they made the trade for Butler, you could see it that it kind of revived or rejuvenated Steph Curry with the way he was playing. Because they knew with the acquisition of Jimmy Butler that they had a chance to make a deep run. Because he's a big-time difference maker. And Curry's even talked about how he's kind of solidified, their lineup and their attack and what they want to do. And their defense is much improved with him in the lineup. But when you reach a certain stage in your career, Steph Curry's not young anymore. And I think this is the first muscle strain of his career, which is pretty wild. But when you get to this stage of your career, how many opportunities does Steph Curry have left to make a run? 1 or 2 years, maybe? I just feel awful for a guy that puts as much work in as he does and works so hard on the court and does so much for his team to get to this stage and have to deal with an injury. And with the hamstring, as you all know, you don't have to be a doctor to know this. It's a tricky injury because if you try to come back too soon, you can re-aggravate, and that can only push you back. I almost feel like the Warriors would be better off just resting Curry the rest of the series and hope that you can get by on what you have. And the reason why is simple. You're not going to win a championship if Curry's unavailable in future rounds, so do not rush him back. Give him enough time to get the rest, and I guess if you're the Warriors, if you can get the split in Minnesota and get a split at home, and then you're tied up at 2 going back to Minnesota for Game 5, maybe Curry can make a return, although that's doubtful. But at least you put yourself in a position to extend the series and find a way to get over until Curry can come back. But I feel bad for him because, again, you get to this stage in your career, there's no guarantees of a tomorrow, and you don't know how many opportunities like this that you're going to have left in your career. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We'll continue to break it down. Also, I'm seeing and feeling a lot of love for Kevin Pritchard right now and how the Blazers somehow made a mistake in letting him go. So we're going to revisit why he was let go by Paul Allen to make sure you understand that. And Kevin Pritchard doing a good job for the Pacers, but there were good reasons for why he was let go, and I would imagine he's learned from that and matured in the process. All right, Evan Giddings, Bay Area at 4:20, and then we'll go to Denver and talk Nuggets Thunder at 5:20. Chad Doing here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. You got the Rip City Drive.
4 seconds to go. Haliburton for three. Three ball up top. Indiana by one. 1 and 1/10 seconds to go. Inbound. Merrill didn't get it off. And this rivals the Milwaukee finish.
You have got to be kidding me.
All right, that continued what we've seen so far in the playoffs. Amazing finishes in the NBA playoffs. Tyrese Haliburton was terrific. I'm glad his dad was not at the game last night because who knows what would have happened and how many people would have had F-bombs dropped on them. He would have been out of control. Probably a good idea to keep that guy away from Pacer games, but Haliburton's been great. I'm still trying to figure out why the Kings, why'd they get rid of him? And why the Kings get rid of De'Aaron Fox? I need explanation. What a bad franchise that is. You know, we always complain about being Blazer fans and bad luck and all the things that have happened over the years. Well, it's a lot better than being a fan of a franchise that just has ineptitude at the top, where you know that whoever's in charge has no clue of what they're doing. That would be the Sacramento Queens. They're terrible. Idiots. Haliburton's great. He was terrific last night. That step-back three was nasty. And it's amazing to see how the step-back has evolved in the NBA. But Haliburton was big, and what a ballsy play that was, too. Got the rebound on the missed free throw that he missed. Went back out top. Looked like he was going to drive into the paint and then step back and launch the three. Game over. That easy. Unbelievable. And now the Cavs are done. All of that work over the course of like 6 months, 60-plus wins, and now you're in an 0-2 hole going on the road to Indiana, who, by the way, is better than last year's version of the Pacers and a team that you don't want to mess with right now. Playing with a lot of confidence, and they're relentless in their pursuit, their attack. They're so quick, and they just continue to get after it. But that was very impressive. And Tyrese Haliburton I like a lot. Now, he does like to talk a little bit of junk, and if he's doing well and making big plays, he likes to let you know about it. But that's part of what makes basketball enjoyable. You know, sometimes, I don't know what it is, but even when you're on the playground and you got a little one-on-one situation, why is it that every part of your being wants to, like, let somebody else know what you're about to do to them? But I thought Haliburton was great, and he talked about that game winner.
I just saw an opportunity, missed a free throw. Somebody had a beautiful tip. I grabbed the rebound, and there was no chance I was passing it, down the line. This is what I do, and trying to make a big play.
I would bet that his dad got Giannis's phone number and called him just to drop F-bombs on him after that shot. That was big time. And that pretty much sealed the deal for them. They're not going to lose the series now. And the Cavs, it's just unfortunate, man. This is why injuries suck. I hate injuries in sport because you get to the postseason after a long grind through the regular season, and then you get decimated by injuries, and you lose a critical game, and now you're done. I hate it. I hate to see that because the Cavs are one of the feel-good, great stories in the NBA this year. Like the Detroit Pistons from, being the worst team in the NBA to being a playoff contender and really pushing the Knicks. That was a great series. The Cavs have been a great story. A lot of good stories in the NBA. But that was big time, man. That was an amazing shot. I was watching. I was like, no. Oh, my gosh, I can't believe it. Much like Aaron Gordon in that three against Oklahoma City. Like I was left stupefied for just a moment. All right, you can reach out to me, 503-248-0620. That's the telephone number to the program, or you can just find me on social at Chad and Rip City. Now, because I am a man of the people, and I guess I can put Brendan in that category too, we want to help you right now by giving away some goodies. And we got a pair of tickets for the Brothers Osborne, and they're going to be at the Clark County Fairgrounds on August 1st. I mean, that's like 5 minutes from where I live, so you can go up to the concert, swing by my crib, say hi to me, and then head over to the show. So if you'd like to see the Brothers Osborne at the Clark County Fairgrounds, we'll take caller number 1 right now, 503-248-0620, 503-248-0620. Call now, and you'll get a pair of tickets for the Brothers Osborne at the Clark County Fairgrounds. 503, fire away! I want to hear from a Brothers Osborne fan. 503-248-0620. First caller through. Speed dial would be helpful. 503-248-0620. You get a pair of tickets for the Brothers Osborne at the Clark County Fairgrounds. 503-248-0620. If you want tickets, call now. Fire away. All right. Ticket Tuesday brought to you by Mart, home of Lucky Number Tuesdays. Check your membership number every Tuesday for your chance to win tons of great prizes from your neighborhood Mart store. It's technically Ticket Wednesday, but it's supposed to be Ticket Tuesday. And then we'll have a 4-pack of tickets for the Hillsboro Hops that we're going to give away coming up at 5 o'clock. All you have to do is listen to me for your chance to win. Now, I mentioned before how I feel bad for Steph Curry because he's a great player, great competitor, great teammate, great ambassador for the game, one of the more humble global superstars I've ever come across. He's a unique, also the greatest shooter in the history of the NBA. I just feel bad for him because he's 37. He's nearing the end. He's in the twilight now. And you just don't know how many good looks you're going to get at making a deep run. And this is definitely going to be difficult for Golden State now. It was going to be hard enough as it was with a healthy squad, but without Steph, their best player by far, he changes the way the defense has to play. And he was the one riddle that I didn't think Minnesota had an answer for. And now where's the offense going to come from? A lot of Jimmy Butler, but that's going to make it easier to defend him. And Minnesota is a very good defensive team. Now, again, maybe they can rely on Minnesota just putting up bricks all night and doing nothing. What a poor game that was. But Steve Kerr, little Q&A after the game on Steph.
Day to day, he'll get an MRI tomorrow.
Did you talk to him? Just what was
I talked to him at halftime. Just, he's obviously crushed, but, the guys picked him up and played a great game. And obviously we're all concerned about Steph, but it's part of the game. You just, guys get hurt and you move on. Our guys did a great job of moving on and getting a great win, 48 hours after a Game 7 road win. It's an amazing group of guys. These guys they compete, they're together. We've been the best defense in the league since the Jimmy trade, and that's what's keeping us afloat right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to find something to hate on Steph Curry about. He's just a good dude and a great player and a great teammate and a great leader for the franchise. And he is big-time superstar down the Bay Area. Beloved. The only thing I could ever say about Steph Curry that's somewhat annoying, I don't know what he does with the mouthpiece when he's at the free throw line, but that bothers me. But that's pretty small potatoes. And then the shimmying and, the act after he hits threes sometimes. Like, that's annoying. Only because I grew up in a day and age where they had, legitimate enforcers. Where if you tried to pull that type of shimmying and, freestyling, doing a little pirouette after a made three, Charles Oakley would put a forearm shiver on your face and you'd fall down. Like, there were guys to prevent that type of activity. But that's not today's NBA. Steph Curry's great. And this is a brutal injury. Again, the timetable, according to doctors, for a grade 1 strain for someone like Steph Curry, it's like a 7 to 10 day time period. My guess is he ain't coming back this series. That's my rough guess because hamstrings are tricky. And if you bring him back too soon and he re-aggravates, then they're really screwed because you can't make a deep run or have any hopes of a potential championship without Steph Curry. So maybe you just rest him and allow him to get 100% healed off that grade 1 strain so that when he does come back, you don't have to worry about the re-aggravation. But I saw that stat today. That was the first muscle strain of his career. That's truly ridiculous. Steve Kerr also talked about the other guys. The other guys you don't even know having to step up.
By the time we got into halftime into the locker room, Steph was already in there with an ice bag on his hamstring, and the guys already knew, and we didn't say anything. I just told Gary he'd start for Steph, and we talked about the plan for the second half.
So Gary Payton II, who got 26 minutes last night, he'll get a much bigger dose of playing time. Yeah, he was 3 of 4 shooting, 8 points in 26 minutes. Great effort from Draymond, 18 points. He connected on 4 threes, 8 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals. That's pretty good. Jimmy Butler with 20 points. He connected on a couple of threes. Buddy Hield, 5 of 8 from downtown for 24. He's really played well for Golden State of late. And a bad night from Brandon Pajinski, who had 3 points in 29 minutes. So you're going to have these other guys step up, but they even got contributions. I thought Kevon Looney was able to step in. And, Steve Kerr trusts him because he knows where to be. And this is going to be a series where rebounding, especially on the offensive glass, is going to be critical. And Kevon Looney's a smart rebounder. They got some quality minutes from Pat Spencer, who, again, Steve Kerr trusts. But, again, he plays a lot of guys throughout the regular season. So in the event that you have to play someone in the postseason, if you have someone go down, these guys can step in with a little bit of confidence. The only problem with Jonathan Kuminga is that he knows the coach doesn't trust him. And so I think he's in a spot now where when he's on the floor, he's pressing and gripping because he knows if he makes a mistake, takes a bad shot, turns it over, the Kerr's going to be like, I can't trust you out there. And that's tough for a player to be in that type of position. But he just doesn't know how to function within that offense when Steph Curry's on the floor. Maybe with Steph out, it'll give Kuminga a better chance to have some success until they can get Steph Curry back on the floor. Brendan, did you have a thought?
Yeah, this was a game that I was fascinated to watch last night, Chad. And, as soon as Steph went down, I kind of had some similar thoughts, just seeing how it was going to play out. And I'll be honest with you, before last night, Chad, I was unfamiliar with who Pat Spencer was. Like, there were a couple guys on Golden State's bench. I'm like, okay. And to that point, the first time he's had a muscle strain, for how much that guy moves off the ball and how many years he has been moving off the ball. This is not a stand and shoot guy, respectfully, like a Kyle Korver. I mean, this is a guy who moves, and I think that's fascinating, but I think you also have to, ask the question, because I kind of agree with you, Chad. I don't think they can rush him back. Do the Warriors have enough without him to get by the Timberwolves? Because I kind of agree with you. I think it was first game, being off for a while for the Timberwolves, but without Steph Curry, the Timberwolves have to smell blood in the water. I mean, I think Jimmy Butler and Buddy Hield and those guys are playing great ball, but I wonder if that defense is enough and they can get enough offense. Like last night, you're going to get 40% shooting from three-point from Draymond again this series? Maybe. I would lean maybe not. I mean, it's hard to say, but I'm kind of with you. I was very disappointed to see the injury happen because it's going to what you said about the Cavs earlier. That's been an incomplete group too this round with their injuries. So you hate to see injuries, especially when we were so invested. And I kind of echoed what you said yesterday. These playoffs have been awesome.
Yeah, the playoffs have been great. Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Yeah, the Warriors are great defensively. Steve Kerr's a great coach, and this is where the acquisition of Jimmy Butler is going to be big time because you can lean on him, and he's not afraid of big moments. He can create for himself. He'll carry the bulk on offense now. But these other guys will have to step up. There is freedom in that, though. It's like, look, I don't need you to be perfect, but I need you to step up and be aggressive and take shots. Keep the spacing going. Draymond's been great the last couple of games. He's been able to make shots. He did so in Houston, and he did so last night. But it's going to make the Minnesota defensive attack much easier because they don't have to account for Curry and chasing him around all game long. And as we talked about with Brad Bakken a couple of days ago, the Minnesota Timberwolves, their ability to scramble and recover to open shooters when Curry's on the floor, they don't have to worry about that anymore. They don't have to worry about getting one of their bigs stuck in a switch situation out on the perimeter with Steph Curry having full advantage. So we'll see how things continue to shake out. But again, this is the advantage of having Jimmy Butler. This is the advantage of having Steve Kerr. They're a smart basketball team that makes good decisions, and they're very good defensively. Now, Anthony Edwards, he was, can we say awful last night? Which is okay, because what I like about his mentality is it's like, look, I'm a shooting guard. I'm going to continue to fire away regardless of how things go down. And that's what he does. He finished with 23 points. He had 14 boards, just 9 of 22 from the field, 1 of 5 from downtown. He was particularly bad in the first half and then picked things up a little bit in the fourth, but by then the game was pretty much over. They put up 11 points in the second quarter, 31 points in the first half, which was a season low. Like, how bad can you be offensively? It's brutal. But it all starts with Ant, and that's what Coach Finch talked about.
What is there to talk about? I mean, you're the leader of the team, and you got to come out and set the tone.
in all ways that happens. And if your shot's not going, like you still have to carry the energy, So I don't think if I got to talk to guys about having the right energy coming into opening second round game, then we're not on the same page. So.
Now, there's Coach Finch. Edwards responded to those comments from his coach.
Coach was saying that he relies on you to set the tone from the start, and he didn't quite see that. Do you feel like you were off at all just in that department, or just kind of the way that you started the game?
Nah. I feel like I played great defense. I just couldn't do nothing on offense, so.
There you go. He also talked about, the series with or without Curry moving forward.
I don't really know. I'm just ready to play. Yeah, I don't really look at who injured, who out there, who not out there. I'm ready to go out there and do it again, try to play a little better.
There you go. Anthony Edwards, he's a no-nonsense type of guy. He's just going to continue to go out and be aggressive. He's going to have nights where he's not going to shoot well, but he's got that mentality of shooting guard like Kobe. I mean, what's your philosophy, Ant, when you're not making threes?
Just keep shooting. I mean, yeah, that's the name of the game. You can't worry about the last shot. Take the next one. Shoot it with confidence. And I think we've been doing that. Like Drew said, I think we just didn't play well today. And, people going to try to blame whoever. They can blame me. I just didn't play good enough.
Yeah, I like that. So I'm going to keep shooting. I didn't play well enough today, whatever. We'll just go out there and continue to battle. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We're going to head to the Bay Area at 4:20 and talk with Evan Giddings, 95.7 The Game, get his take on the Curry injury and how they will adjust moving forward in the series, and also whether or not he expects Curry to come back with this injury in the series against Minnesota. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. Well, Jerry Jones had talked about going all in again, saying they were going to make a big move. They've acquired George Pickens for a few picks from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And by all accounts, the problem with George Pickens is not his talent. He's a very good wide receiver and has the potential to be a big time, big play type of guy for the Cowboys. The problem is all the other antics that come with him. And the reports on him are just issues within the locker room, showing up late for meetings and not being on top of his game, not being a true pro. So we'll see if that changes in Dallas, but that's the story on him. And the problem is in the NFL, it's a big responsibility. You got to be there on time. You got to be there with your teammates. And you don't want to be one of those players that causes issues in the locker room because you want some cohesiveness, some connectivity amongst the guys. Teams are real big. The Blazers are real big on this right now about, building the right culture, making sure that you pick the right type of guys who are going to fit within your system, your locker room, and the overall, vibe with the crew. So we'll see how things work out with George Pickens. The Steelers, obviously, after acquiring that freak of nature from the Seahawks, we're now in a position to, move off of, Pickens. And DK Metcalf is, a big-time player. I sat next to a scout. This was at the opener last year. I went to the Denver, Seattle opener up there, up north. Hideous game, by the way. It was Bo Nix's first start, and the offense was not exactly what I would call pristine. But I was talking to this scout who I was sitting right next to, and I was just asking him. I love scouts because they know all the players. They broke down the film, and they've got insight on all these different guys. So I was just asking about different players, different numbers on the field. What do you think about number 20? What do you think about 25? Just going down the line of guys I was interested in. And what he said about DK is that really the only thing that he said he needs to work on is that for a guy of his size and strength, he doesn't come down with enough of the 50-50 balls as you would expect a guy of that size and strength to do. But outside of that, he runs well, good route runner, great speed. And I just love, he's one of those guys like, I would prefer that he goes shirtless all the time because I love seeing his physique. DK Metcalf is chiseled out of stone. So we'll see how things work out for Pickens in Dallas. I'm sure that Dak Prescott doesn't mind having another, playmaker. Pickens is a heck of a player. But again, it's not just about your talent. This happens in real life. Showing up on time, being willing to help out, being a part of the team. This is something that you deal with at your own job. I mean, do you know people you work with that aren't exactly what you would consider team players that you can't rely upon? They don't show up on time. And that's big in the NFL. It's like if you're not there, you're not participating with everything you got, then you're going to have teammates that are going to look at you sideways because so many guys in the league are there to bust their ass. A lot of guys show up early. They leave late. They put in the time. They sacrifice. And when you have someone next to you that's not doing the same, you're going to stand out. And they're not going to respect that. They don't care what your talent level is. That's why we talk about quarterbacks, the great ones. Peyton Manning was incredible, but he also showed up early, last one to leave, put in the time, and with the work he put in, he was able to demand more from his teammates. So we'll see how things shake out. Sometimes a change of scenery can be good. When I think Dallas and I think Cowboys, I don't think the most disciplined team in the league, though. And the problem is if you can't make it work in Pittsburgh with that coach, Mike Tomlin, that would seem like that could be a bit of an issue. But the Cowboys out there making moves. And the Steelers, I still expect Aaron Rodgers at some point to show up to town. We got, the rookie camps going on. OTA start here in a couple of weeks. I don't think Aaron's going to show up for that. But I think he's just taking his time. But eventually he'll sign and be a part of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the schedule drop is coming up on May 14th, 1 week from today. It's one of my favorite days of the year because now we have the college schedule with the dates set. And we'll get the NFL schedule. And then, like any good sports fan, you can sit back and try to pick out some of your weekend getaways. Trying to pair up a college game and an NFL game. That's why I love hitting cities like Phoenix, Arizona. They have all sports available at all times. So I'm excited for the schedule drop. And then on the 12th, less than a week away, we've got the draft lottery. I saw, too, where the Trailblazers. So Tamani Kamara is going to represent the team on the stage behind the podium. When they do that at the lottery where you've got the different chairs. They sit there at that podium thing. Like B-Roy was there recently, and they have someone to represent the franchise. Tamani Kamara will represent the Trailblazers. And then behind the sequestered doors where the ping pong balls pop out, Sean Highkin was in there a couple years ago with the Wemby draft. They take it's like you go into a comedy show where they don't want your phones out because they don't want you recording and releasing the material. If they're trying out new material, they take your phones away so you can't communicate with anyone on the outside world, and they keep you sequestered until the information has gone public. That's pretty much how that works. So Tamani Kamara, according to Highkin, in addition to Tamani Kamara being the Blazers onstage lottery rep, assistant GM Andre Patterson will be representing the team in the sequestered drawing room where the results are determined. Portland has a 3.7% chance of landing the number 1 pick and a 16.9 chance at the top 4. Okay. So I don't know. Here's what you got to do. We just need to get down on our hands and knees and pray.
Pray.
It would be a game changer if the Trailblazers could land the top pick, obviously. You think about the lottery, like everyone's talking about what the Blazers need to do, who they need to pick, how they need to trade, whatever. If they get the number 1 pick, it doesn't matter because then it is on. You get Cooper Flagg, it is on. I know that it's only a 3.7% chance, but it's not 0, as Sean Highkin told me yesterday. So that's what I'm hoping for. But at the very least, if they can just jump up into the top 4, they have access to a very good player that could come in and be a difference maker. Now, the one thing to keep an eye on is if they don't move up into the top 4 or at the number 1 spot, will they draft a player if they're sitting there at, 10 or 11? Like if they don't move up, are they going to draft a player, or would they take that pick and attach it to a current player, one of their vets, to move and make a deal? I mean, those are all things that are going to be fun to watch. The draft will be on June 25th. Okay, when we come back, I want to just revisit Kevin Pritchard for just a moment. He's getting a lot of love, and I've had Blazer fans reach out to me and be like, man, I wish we still had Pritchard. Well, I'll tell you why he was let go by Paul Allen. Now, Pritchard doing a good job with the Pacers right now, but the reasons why he were let go were legitimate. And, like anyone else, you learn from your mistakes, you mature, and you continue to move forward, which it looks like Kevin Pritchard has done. But it also goes to show you that when you're in that role as general manager, part of your job is to, be a shield or to take bullets for your owner and not throw them under the bus. It's kind of an important lesson to learn. Your boss is your boss. You may not like everything they do, but there still has to be a certain level of respect there. So we'll get into that next. You can reach out to me on social at Chad Rip City or just call the show at 503-248-0620. And then I've got a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops, so you can sit in the Rip City Radio Row out at the Hillsborough Ballpark. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. We'll give those away at 5. All right, 4 o'clock. What's up, my friends? Hope you're enjoying your afternoon. Bad news for the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry has suffered a grade 1 strain of his hammy. He did that in the Warriors' Game 1 victory over the Wolves. The expected recovery time, 7 to 10 days. He's out for Game 2 tomorrow for sure. Playoff doubleheader tonight. Knicks and Celtics Game 2 from Boston. Celtics favored by 10.5, looking to even up the series. The game will tip off at 4 o'clock here in just a few minutes on TNT. At 6:30 on TNT, the Nuggets and Thunder from Oklahoma City. Thunder favored by 10.5. Oklahoma City looks to even up their series after dropping Game 1 following Aaron Gordon's game-winning 3. The Cowboys have acquired Steelers wide receiver George Pickens for multiple picks, including a third-rounder in next year's draft. And longtime Utah quarterback Cam Rising is retiring from football after suffering multiple injuries. We'll head to the Bay Area and talk Warriors and Steph Curry at 4:20 with Evan Giddings. All right, Knicks and Celtics coming up in just a few minutes on TNT Game 2. And the Knicks with that absurd comeback in Game 1 and got the victory in overtime by 3. The Celtics, of course, in Game 1, a sparkling 15 of 60 from downtown. My over-under on the Celtics three-pointers made tonight, 25. I think they're going to destroy the Knicks. It's going to be a blowout and probably over by halftime. That's my rough guess. But we'll see. I'm hoping the Knicks don't wet themselves after getting the Game 1 victory because I'd like to see that series extended. And if they can grab at least one at home, that Game 5 or Game 6 would be one of the biggest games ever played at Madison Square Garden since, their 99 run to the finals with Latrell Sprewell. That'd be pretty amazing. All right, got a couple of messages here. One, Sean in Damascus reached out and asked me, any luck with Rick Beato? Not yet. I've got multiple big name guests that I'm continuing to pursue, and some of these dudes are hard to pin down. I've got guys I'm working on. Rick Beato would be one of them. I'd love to talk to him. I love his YouTube channel, and I think he does one of the best music pages I've ever come across. I'm fascinated by him. So if you haven't checked out his YouTube page, you should do so. We were talking about different YouTube pages. I gave you out some of my favorites right now. I did that on Friday. Rick Beato is right up there near the top of the list. YouTube mode is something I get stuck in basically every night. Not last night. Last night was one of those great nights where, you ever had that experience where sometimes, you get in bed or you're getting ready for bed and you're lying there and you can't fall asleep right away. I have that experience a lot. But last night I got in bed and I was like, I'm done, man. I turned off the TV. I just went straight to bed. And I don't even remember falling asleep. It was that quick. I slept like a little baby last night. It was awesome. And I wish I could have that experience more often. So I'm working on it, Sean. I'm working on it. Also, Sean and Sandy reached out and said, hey, the Seattle Mariners have won 9 series in a row for the first time since 2001. People best pay attention to what's going on. Well, I'm paying attention, and I think the Mariners are playing great baseball right now, and their offense has provided some great support. But the problem is it's May, and they've done this before where they get off to a hot start, and then they go right into the tank. So I am cautiously, extremely cautiously optimistic, and I will wait and see. Love what I see right now, but like I do in baseball, that it's May right now, and a June swoon could be coming right around the corner. So we'll wait and see. I want to believe it's legit. And he tells me, it's legit, brother. See you at the end of the year for the Dodgers series. That's going to be awesome. The Dodgers are going to be up in Seattle. Unfortunately, whoever scheduled that one's a dum-dum because they put it right at the start of football season. So be smarter. I was able to make it up for the entire series a few years ago, and they put it at a proper time, like in August before football season. I don't like things to conflict with the start of football season. So there you have it. Sean's pretty happy with what he sees from the Mariners. All right, I came across this today. A lot of people are giving the Pacers love, and rightfully so, because they're balling out of their backside right now. And they got a 2-0 lead on the Cavs, who were injured and banged up in Game 2. And now they're going back to Indiana with a chance to get the sweep in Games 3 and 4. I don't know if they're going to get the sweep, but I do know that the series is over. The Cavs are not going to recover from what we have seen. And it's unfortunate because they had such a great year, but they're done. No disrespect, but they're done. And if you look at what Kevin Pritchard has been doing of late for the Pacers, it's been pretty good. Over the past 3 years, Kevin Pritchard has traded for Pascal Siakam, Obi Toppin, Aaron Nesmith, and Tyrese Haliburton. And they drafted Andrew Nembhard, Ben Mathurin, Jarace Walker, Isaiah Jackson, and Ben Shepherd. So he's done a heck of a job. There's no question about it. Now, you have to go back during his time here in Portland and why he was eventually kicked to the curb by Paul Allen. I forgot the year of the draft, but Paul Allen, you got to keep this in mind, okay? First off, he's the owner. And I know people in sports fans are real big on this. Like, they don't want the owner to be involved. And for some reason, if you own a sports team and you want to give input, then you're considered a meddling owner. Name a business where someone owns it and yet they don't share input or express their desires on how they want things done. Like, I don't understand that. Like, if you own something and you invest the money to buy it and you support it and you pay employees, shouldn't you be able to make decisions? And not only that, but can't you empower your people to make decisions and yet still have input? So I've never bought into the idea that somehow you buy a sports team and spend, many millions of dollars, and you pay these athletes many millions of dollars, that somehow you don't get to have input. I think that's insane. If I bought a sports team, I would hire good people, but there would be times where I'd give input for sure. It's my team. I own the team. I bought the team. I run it. I own it. And it's my finances that support it. Therefore, I get to have decision-making power when I decide I want to have decision-making power. That's what being an owner is all about. Oh, being a governor is all about. Forgot about that. They're governors now, not owners. That's absurd, too. So what Kevin Pritchard did, if you go back to the draft, Paul Allen, he would always, and keep this in mind, he would get tape and break tape on young guys. Paul Allen's favorite thing was the draft. And he would be there for the workouts. He would have guys send him film, and he would break down the film. Like, he wanted to be educated on the process. So he actually spent time breaking down film, which I think is awesome. Well, Paul was a big fan of Patty Mills, who, by the way, ended up carving out a long and very good career, right? Well, Paul Allen wanted Patty Mills and said, I want to draft Patty Mills. And so the Blazers drafted Patty Mills. Well, the problem is that Kevin Pritchard, the problem with Kevin during his time in Portland is that he was a little bit mouthy. He talked a little bit too much, and I think early on, because he had some success with the maneuvers he made, when the whole Pritch slap thing came to be and people were propping up Kevin Pritchard, he probably got just a little bit too full of himself and started to have just a little bit too much chit-chat, right? Too much talk. As we talked about before, I've learned this from my dad, talking too much can be a bad thing. In fact, if you see someone always bumping their gums, you can assume that they're in folly because they're a human being. And the more you talk, the more nonsense that flies out. Maybe that only happens to people in other states. I'm just saying, in my experience in life, the more I talk, the dumber I get. And the more I hear people bumping their gums about everything, and I know people and work around people that talk a lot, and they spend a lot of time talking about themselves, and they're usually in folly. Well, the problem is with Kevin Pritchard, he kind of said something like, when asked about Patty Mills, oh, that was Paul's pick. Well, you don't do that if you're a general manager. Oh, yeah, that was Paul's pick. Where you kind of belittle the owner because you're letting it be known that I didn't choose Patty Mills, but the owner wanted Patty Mills, so we got Patty Mills for Paul. You don't do that. The way you do it is you come out and you say, here's our draft picks. We're happy with all of our decisions, and here's why we took these guys. But you don't say we did it because, oh, that was Paul's guy. Because, again, that puts the owner in a bad light. And he's your boss. And, again, he bought the team, and he makes all the money, and he pays all the employees. And if he wants Patty Mills on the team, then you just take Patty Mills, and then you protect him by saying, yeah, I'm totally down with the pick. But he didn't do that. And so Paul forced him out. Now, does that mean that, Kevin Pritchard's a bad talent evaluator? No. Does it mean that Kevin Pritchard doesn't know what he's doing? No. It just means that, Kevin Pritchard, like a lot of people, young in your career, you make a mistake, you pay the price, and then you move on and you learn from it and you get better. And Kevin Pritchard's doing a heck of a job for the Pacers, but he was moved out for legitimate reasons. And I'm sure that none of you would do the same thing. If your boss wants you to do something, you do it. You don't complain and then throw him under the bus. Now, behind closed doors, you can have a legitimate discussion about, hey, I think we should do this. I don't like this decision. You don't want to take this path. Here's why we need to select this player instead of Patty Mills. You have those discussions, healthy debates, but if the owner decides he wants to take that player, then you take that player. Right? Just like with Cleveland, the Browns. Obviously, their owner Haslam, Jimmy Haslam, wanted to draft Shedeur Sanders after they took Dylan Gabriel in the third round. Well, you got to do it. You make it happen, and then you move forward. And that's the way we all do it with bosses. There's times when my boss comes to me and says, I need this, this, and this. And I disagree with every point he made. But the bottom line is I say, okay. He explains why he wants to do what he wants to do, and then I go out and get it done for him. That's it. But that was the problem with Kevin Pritchard. Too mouthy, too full of himself at the time, and Paul Allen wasn't down. And part of being a good employee is understanding your owner, how they function, how they operate, what type of communication they want, and making sure you take bullets for them. Like Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell does not work for the fans. He works for the owners. So his job is to make more money for the owners and to be a protective shield, a bulletproof vest for them. Meaning they're going to make decisions and do things that even if he disagrees with, he's not going to come out and say, look, I got to be honest with you. I think the owners have lost their minds, and this is not my choice, and I wouldn't do this, but this is what they wanted to do. He would never do that. He comes out with solidarity and says, here's what we're doing, and this is why. Boom. It's done. But he doesn't throw owners under the bus through the process because he knows who he works for. He knows who signs his check. And that's the way it works in the NBA or the NFL or the NHL or pick your sport. So I've never bought into the silent owner idea. If you spend hundreds of millions of dollars, that denotes that you have the power to make some decisions. Now, you still want to empower your people, but come on now. All right, we'll keep things rolling. When we come back, we're going to head down to San Francisco and talk with Evan Giddings, and we'll get his take on the Dubs and Steph Curry and how they're going to function without him for some time in this series. That's coming up next. We got Hops tickets to give away at 5. You got Chad Doing on your home of the Portland Trailblazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, our next guest is the man. He's from 95.7 The Game down in San Francisco, home of the Golden State Warriors. Evan Giddings is back on the show. Now, Evan, we know now that it's a grade 1 strain of the hamstring after the MRI. So what have you gathered so far from the people you know in terms of how long he's going to be out in this series against Minnesota?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't necessarily want to start it with a doom and gloom. I want to say hi. Hi, Chad. What's up, my friend?
What's up,
How
brother?
are you?
I'm great, man. I'll tell you what. You know what's been great about the playoffs this year is that, like anything else, I go through ruts with different sports, but the first round and early part of the second round, it has fully revived my love of NBA basketball. So, man, I'm all in on what we're seeing so far. These games have been great. What do you think?
Oh, no, I'm 100% with you. It's the best time of year. You know, if you're going to equate it, I know a lot of NFL fans feel like the divisional round is the best weekend of football. I feel like the conference semifinals in the NBA is sort of that, right? You've had teams that have figured out how to win a series. You're going to eliminate it down to the Final Four, and then you're going to see who can, of course, come out on top. But, yeah, I'm with you. The NBA playoffs have been fantastic. The only thing right now marring it for the Golden State Warriors, unfortunately, is injury. And to get back to your original question, I think it's going to be at least 3 games for Steph Curry. And this is where the schedule, along with the Warriors' inability to close out the Houston Rockets in 5-6 games, may come back to bite them because Steph has the grade 1 hamstring strain, just the second strain of his career, in fact, which is pretty incredible. But he's going to be out at least for a week, and that means if you have the every other day schedule, which the Warriors basically built themselves into by not finishing business against Houston, you're playing, last night, you're playing Thursday, you're playing Saturday, you're playing Monday. That's the first day that he's essentially eligible to come back and at least be evaluated to play. So Game 5 is the earliest Steph can return. But, Chad, I'm thinking that Game 6 is probably the target date at this point, and the question becomes, can they survive for that long?
Yeah, it's a good question. I just looked up the schedule, and to your point about Game 6, if you can believe the internet doctors, Evan, they say it's a 7 to 10-day recovery period for the grade 1 strain for someone at the level of Steph Curry. That would put him at a potential return in Game 6 because Game 6 is Sunday, May 18th. So I think you're right. I think the earliest he would come back would be May 18th. But my thought is this. Even if you have to keep him out, I don't know if you can survive the series without him. But even the problem is that if you bring him back too soon and he re-aggravates, we know one thing. This team's not going to make a deep run without Steph Curry. So at least let him stay out until he is 100% healthy because you don't want re-aggravation because if they do win the series and then you move on to face Oklahoma City, that could be a big-time issue if you don't have your best scorer on the floor and your best player, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, whoever you play in the next round, it could be Denver, it could be OKC. Either way, I think it's going to be a tougher test than Minnesota. But I think what the Warriors are trying to avoid, which is obviously a very delicate needle that they're trying to thread, is not have another 2019 Kevin Durant situation where originally it was just a calf strain. Went down against the Rockets, missed the remainder of that series, but then come NBA Finals time, they tried to push him back. I think a little bit too soon. A lot of people debate this subject, but the fact remains he came back early. Obviously, the rest is history. Popped his Achilles almost as soon as he came back looking as fresh as he ever was. So that's what you cannot allow to happen here. It's not just the fact that Steph could be rushed back too soon. You're risking even future injury for Curry beyond this season. So while it's a strain right now, I can't help but think about what happened to Kevin Durant and obviously the ramifications of that Achilles tear.
Yeah, no doubt. And I just feel bad for Steph, one of the best players in the game, greatest shooter of all time, one of the most humble global superstars I've ever come across. I just feel bad because when you're 37, you just don't know how many more deep runs you're going to have a chance to get. And I feel like when Butler arrived, it kind of rejuvenated him because he knew they had a chance to make a run. And the problem is at his age, you don't know when you're going to get a look like this again. So it sucks for a guy like Steph to be in this spot. I hate it.
No, I'm right there with you. And I think that's why there were reports after the game about teammates in the locker room seeing him shed tears. And obviously it's not like, oh, the season's over, I'm done, but it's just this emotional outpour. And that's where Steph is, I don't think gets as much credit for being as genuine a human being as he is. Everyone knows that he's nice. Everyone knows that he's kind. But he really wears his sleeves on his emotions if you get him down to what matters to him, and that's competing in high-level basketball games, which obviously they are right now. So I think the showing of tears in the locker room suddenly tells me that Steph knows that this is a serious enough injury that it could possibly derail their season. But obviously it doesn't mean that he's done yet, because if there's anything we also do know about Steph, he's one of the most well-conditioned athletes. The Warriors have an incredible medical staff, and if there's one group or pairing of people, I would say Steph and Rick Celebrini might just be that, for lack of a better terms, the real Batman and Robin for the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, you know what's amazing about Steph? Like, when he was drafted, everyone thought the ankles wouldn't hold up. And then I read that stat where this is his first muscle strain of his entire career. Like, his durability is something that's not talked about enough. You're right. He is so well conditioned. And for a guy that's always on the move on the floor, working his ass off, it's pretty amazing that this is the first muscle strain ever at age 37.
Yeah, I think in 2018, I was reading he might have pulled his groin, but it didn't keep him out. That's the thing. This is the first real significant, if you want to call it a grade 1, straight, whatever you want to label it, and mention the internet doctors, everyone's going to do that. But you're right. It's incredible for how much movement he goes through on the floor every game. And in fact, I was aware of this when I was working with you in Portland, because around 2015-16, they started tracking mileage. They started tracking actual player placement on the floor and how much you run. And I remember reading about this in Portland because C.J. McCollum was also one of those players that moved without the ball so much. And he was obviously a great shooter at the time, but he ran the most miles, him, J.J. Redick, and Steph Curry in the NBA. And it's around 4 to 4.5 miles per game. Obviously, C.J. McCollum, his career has gone where typically players do at their age, which is down. J.J. Redick has since retired and now, amazingly, is a head coach in the NBA. But Steph Curry is still running the 4 to 4.5 miles per game, if not more sometime, plus also being asked to do what he does on the ball. It just simply doesn't get talked about enough at age 37, how ridiculously conditioned he is. And it's one of the more, I don't know if it's irreplicable, but certainly amazing storylines about him that doesn't get talked about.
Yeah, no question. I wanted to ask you about Steve Kerr and what your thoughts is on him. It's weird because every fan base goes through their periods of craziness. And I've noticed that there are a lot of Warrior fans very critical of Steve Kerr and the work that he does. But I legitimately think he's like the second best coach in the league, probably behind Spoelstra, but he's right up there. He's like top 2. That's how good he is. I thought the job he did last night on the fly, getting multiple guys in the game and giving them confidence to where they could come in and just, if you just make a shot and make an impact, we can get through this with the lead that we have. And then the work that they continue to do defensively. Like, I think Kerr's been terrific. But why do Warrior fans have so much frustration with him?
Because they're emotional, sports demons like the rest of it. I don't know. I mean, I really have no answer for you. But I do think that part of it is true that, look, just because you're great at what you do doesn't mean you're above criticism. But I'll tell you this, and to me, the greatest example of Steve Kerr's not only coaching, because he does have, the X's and O's. He makes great out of timeout plays. But the trust that he instills in his players, to me, is actually where I might even put him above Spoelstra. And he's certainly in the same echelon in terms of current head coaches. And the example you have to look at is Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield is a player that for about a 2-month period, Chad, shot literally 31% or below from three-point range. He was an awful three-point shooter. But understanding Steve Kerr, he identified where the weaknesses, the deficiencies of his team was. It's even before Jimmy Butler got here, and that was really having a secondary shooter or just people in general that could space the floor. He knew that he was going to need Buddy Hield at some point, whether it's in the regular season, the postseason, to play big, to give this team a chance to have a second or tertiary score. And that, of course, came to fruition in both not only game 3, game 4, but obviously game 7 against the Rockets. He had a literal goose egg in game 6, did not score a basket, and Steve Kerr still instilled him in the starting lineup in game 7. He obviously has a historic 33 points, a Klay Thompson-esque performance, and they move on to the second round. So the fact that Steve Kerr can not only draw up plays, he can be a great head coach in game. He also has enough foresight to see this is a player that I'm going to need down the line, and I'm going to stick with him through thick and thin. And I just love to see the fact that he was rewarded for it.
I like that. Evan Giddings is with us here from 95.7 The Game. So the defense is still going to be great without Curry, but how do you expect the lineup to change? And what do you expect to see with their offensive attack?
Well, I think this is this is why you paid Jimmy Butler. Not only traded for Jimmy Butler, this is why you gave him a 2-year extension. Like, this is why you gave him $121 million for the next 2 seasons. It's for this kind of non-Steph moment right here. Over the next 3, perhaps even 4 games, you're going to run the entire offense through Jimmy Butler. And I think it's actually going to look a lot different than when Steph is on the floor, because you don't have someone else that can run motion, that can draw that kind of attention. Buddy Hield might fill that role to some extent, but I think we're going to see a lot more ISO pick and roll type of hunting, where you're just basically putting Rudy Gobert, or perhaps it's Julius Randle, whichever big and lesser of a defender on the floor, into the action for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I think that's where Steve Kerr is also great. The fact that he can work, like you mentioned earlier, on the fly and see, okay, we don't have our best score. We don't have our best gravitational pull there. So we're going to play a little more traditional 2025 pick and roll, hunt and choose our matchup type basketball. And Jimmy Butler, to his credit, is one of the best ISO scorers that this league has seen, especially come postseason time. So that's, I think, what you're going to see a little bit more until Steph Curry gets back, hopefully.
All right. If you look at the numbers in the series, they get game 1. Okay, so if let's assume that you get a split in the first 2 games in Minnesota, then what's the best case scenario for the Warriors without Steph? To get a split at home and then it's tied at 2 going into game 5? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as you push this to a game 6 somehow, some way, which obviously means you just got to win 1 game over the next 4. Like,
okay.
you have to find a way to get this to a game 6, because I think that even game 5 for Steph is going to be pushing it and might be in that sort of danger harm zone, which of course no one wants to see. So to me, if the Warriors are down 3-2, if they have a healthy Steph Curry or somewhere close to a healthy Steph, I think they can beat Minnesota. But to me, the target date would be more of game 6 than game 5. And that just means you got to steal 1 over the next 3. That is the most important part of what they did last night, is they won a game that they had to get. And whether you think that the Warriors are better, the Wolves are better, the fact remains that the Warriors stole home court, and now they basically put the pressure on Minnesota to try and wrap this bad boy up before Curry gets back.
Now, I know that Steve Kerr doesn't trust Jonathan Kuminga, but don't you think there's a chance where Kuminga can make a better impact over the next few games without Steph, because he seems to function better on the floor when Steph's not in there?
Yeah, he does. The thing that's kind of weird about JK is he fills the same sort of role as Jimmy Butler, and they've been playing a little more together with each other. I think he actually is going to have to play, to your point, because the one thing that the Warriors now need is somewhat more of an ISO score, like I'm talking about. And I don't think it necessarily means that JK is all of a sudden going to play, 20 or 30 minutes in a game, but you're going to see him at least be given some rope early on, because if he has it going, he can steal you a couple of minutes here, a couple of minutes there, to get Jimmy Butler off the floor and get him some rest, which he is absolutely going to need. So the one thing that is interesting, though, now moving forward for Golden State is I think they have held they've held their hat on defense. And the one thing that Kuminga has not been able to pick up since coming back from injury as much is that rotational zone, heady sort of play on the defensive end. And so that might be the one thing that keeps him off the floor, especially if someone like Gary Payton II is healthy, because to their credit, since Jimmy Butler's gotten here, they are number 1 in the NBA in defensive rating. And that's a big reason why over the course of this Houston and now Minnesota series, they have not allowed 100 points in, I think, 4 of the 8 games that they've played.
All right. Baseball question for you. The Giants right now playing very good baseball. Is it fool's gold, or is this a legit start?
Dude, I've been trying to figure this out for the last couple of weeks. I hope it's real, because when the Giants are good, you know, Chad, it is more of a baseball city here in San Francisco than people give it credit for. But there's something a little fugazi about it, and I can't quite put my finger on it. Like, they don't hit the ball well. I think they're 4-9 against lefties when they should be smashing them. They don't have any really big boppers. Their big acquisition this offseason, Willie Adames, is hitting 220 and can't field a ground ball to his right. Like, they've been getting by winning close games and winning with their pitching, particularly their bullpen. So I want to believe it's real, but the thing is, in the NL West, you got to play this kind of baseball for 6 months. And at some point, I just think the Giants are going to fall off and hit a skid, and that's when we'll see who they truly are. So forgive me for not buying the stock. I hope I'm wrong. They're playing damn good baseball right now, but I guess I just don't see it.
All right, one more question for you. I'm just curious. If you took Steph Curry up against Montana, Rice, Mad Bum, Mays, Posey, and Lincecum, Like, who's number one on that list right now? Is it Steph Curry, or is somebody else still edging him out for the all-timer in the Bay?
Well, to me, it is between four guys. The Mount Rushmore would obviously be Curry, Bonds, Mays, and Montana. But I really think that Curry is number one, and I swear I'm not just being prisoner of the moment. Like, he's got the individual accolades. He's a one-team player, which Montana unfortunately was not. Neither was Willie Mays because he retired with the Mets. Mays didn't have the championships. Bond doesn't have the postseason success. All of those players are incredible, but if you put together the entire package, Curry has been arguably the best player in his sport at one time. He's won a significant amount. He's been the best player on multiple iterations of championship teams, and he's beloved because he's such a great guy. As weird as it might sound to some people, yes, I would put Steph above Montana, Bonds, and Mays.
Yeah, I agree. And not only that, but Curry's the one guy, too, that's loved on both sides of the Bay, too.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point. Yeah, because of starting in Oakland, he lived there. I mean, gosh, I remember when I was in high school, he'd walk around Bay Street with his posse, and you could see him out there in the community, and it's like, oh yeah, that's Steph Curry. He's a man of the people.
Dude, I saw him because I lived in Emeryville when I was down there. I'm not joking. Like, I saw him and his wife bumping around Oakland nondescript on multiple occasions, just out enjoying the area. And I was like, it was so bizarre because and I'm talking about just him and his wife. It wasn't like there was a posse around him, right? It was cool.
Yeah, well, and I think obviously he can do less of that now than he used to, but that's the kind of person I think he is. He's just not maybe allowed to be because of obviously his status and his gravitas. But you're right. I mean, Steph is one of a kind. He looks kind of like a normal average person unless he can really figure out who he is. And he acts completely that way, too. Like, one thing that I think is funny is if you go through all of the post-game or post-presser sound, like, Steph never has the incendiary fire quote. He may say something that is obviously going to get blown up because of who he is, but he never is the person to be grabby with the mic. He mumbles a little bit. He's just like, oh, sorry about that. But he's just kind of like one of us. And that's what I think makes him so beloved compared to some of the other athletes that have come through the Bay.
There's no question. All right, Evan Giddings, 95.7 The Game with us here on the Rip City Drive. Evan, I love you, man. Great work. Enjoy this series, and we'll catch up in the future.
Love you too, Chad. Anytime, man. Take it easy.
Thanks, buddy. Evan's a good dude. Yeah, so if you're a Warriors fan or a Steph Curry fan, that's your formula for success. They just need to win another game and make sure that they have a chance at a Game 6, because that would be the earliest potential return for Steph, based on the internet doctors, of course. So that Game 6 will be Sunday, May 18th. The injury is like a 7 to 10 day recovery period. So if that's the case, then that would put you right about Game 6, which is May 18th. And today is May 7th. But they're not going to rush him back. This is the same team that purposely kicked away Game 5 of the Rockets series because like, oh, what the heck? We'll just win Game 6 back at home. And they didn't even win that game. They lost it and had to go win Game 7 in Houston. So they'll just continue to take that approach. They're not going to rush Steph back. They'll take their time, which is the right decision. But in the meantime, these other bums are going to have to find a way to win a game without Steph, which I think they can probably do. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We're going to head to Denver and get a preview of the Nuggets and Thunder coming up at 5:20. Brendan Slaughter's here. Chad Doing is here. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Portland Trailblazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Tony and Boring made a valid point. Nice use of the word fugazi by Evan Giddings. Nice work, Evan. And there are some people that did not like Evan. My man Fava Flav chimed in. Hey, Chad, I hate listening to these ass-kissing guests. You would think Curry is saving lives. He's just a basketball player. That's true, but I could also argue, Fava Flav, just think for a moment how many babies have been born due to the three-point shooting capabilities of Steph Curry. So in a way, he is saving lives and creating lives because he's bringing people together. And think about how many kids in the Bay Area born recently have been named Steph or Stephen or Curry or whatever name you want to name them. But Steph's brought a lot of people together. That's all I'm saying. So Fava Flav not enjoying these ass-kissing guests. But, it's like...
You think there's a lot of Curry babies in the Bay, Chad?
Yes, I do. I do believe that after big wins and championships that there are people who come together for special moments. Yes.
Fair.
I don't doubt that for a second.
No, I don't either, but it's probably not an exhaustive NBA list of guys, right? It's probably just a few.
Steph Curry, I would say Michael Jordan is responsible.
Yeah. My best friend, who again was born in 95, his middle name is Jordan, so go figure.
That's what I'm talking about. All right. Here's another one. Curry smells. I'm going to assume you're talking about actual Curry. Michael Shacker informed me he loves Curry. I don't have a problem with Curry. No, the thing is, there's certain towns, like what I learned down in the Bay Area, and every town's got their guys, right? What I learned in the Bay Area is if you're going to live and work down there, especially in sports radio, there are certain people that you have to be very delicate with when it comes to communicating about them. Steph Curry, beloved, you can't say a bad word about him. Barry Bonds. Giant fans don't give a rip what you think about Barry. They love him, and they will fight you if you try to criticize Barry, who is still the best baseball player of my lifetime and one of the greatest of all time. Barry Bonds is awesome. Tim Lincecum. They view Lincecum as the guy who got things started with their 3 titles. They love the freak. You cannot speak poorly of him. You can also put Buster Posey and Mad Bum on that list. Those guys, and then obviously Montana and Rice. Untouchables. Absolutely untouchable. And you can criticize Draymond for being crazy, but they still love Draymond too. And yet they don't like Kevin Durant. Every fan base, like we have that here in town too. You can't really criticize Bill Walton or people are going to think you're crazy. People shouldn't criticize Clyde, but they do because he went to Houston, so that's understandable. We just don't have as many options because we're a one-team town. It's kind of like in Denver. I used to live there, and obviously I love the Broncos. It bothers me when people try to criticize Elway because I love him, and he brought nothing but joy to my life. Absolute joy. I can never repay number 7 for what he brought to my life, sports-wise. With the championships, and then after that idiot, who's that fat freak, Josh McDaniels, after that bum ran the franchise into the ground by trying to be a fake Bill Belichick and disgraced the owner, Pat Bowlen. Pat Bowlen fired his ass and then brought in John Elway to run things, and Elway returned the greatness. Got Peyton Manning, went to a Super Bowl, won another championship. It's like, dude, you didn't need to do that, John. John, you did not have to do that, but you did, and I'm forever grateful. So every town's got those guys. Like in New York, what do? You talk bad about Jeter? A Yankee fan will fight you. There's certain guys like that. Right now, there's something to keep an eye on. Boston, midway through the second quarter, on top, 34-27. So the Knicks are hanging tough. And I felt like tonight for both the Knicks and the Nuggets, you have to survive the early storm. And Boston came out early and built a 13-point lead right away. But the Knicks are continuing to hang tough. So we'll keep an eye on that. And if you're curious, we know about the poor three-point shooting in Game 1. Right now in Game 2, the Celtics, 4 of 18 from downtown thus far. If that number continues and they struggle to make threes, the Knicks may find themselves in a ball game second half if they can limit their turnovers and their mistakes. and now make that 4 of 20 from downtown. And we'll see if it's going to be 4 of 21. Nope, he got it.
How many threes in that possession, Chad?
3 threes in a matter of about 10 seconds. And Jaylen Brown, after a couple of offensive rebounds, able to knock one down from the corner. 10-point lead Celtics with 4:45 to play in the half. So we'll see how things shake out. But the Knicks are hanging tough. I got to give the Knicks credit. Because keep in mind with the Knicks, when they went out and made all these moves, they did so because they wanted to build a squad that could compete with Boston. So they went out to get Karl Anthony Towns. They made the move to get Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. So you put that squad together because you're looking to get multiple defenders who can guard Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And you want to have an offense that can score and be able to make shots. And then they come out with this new squad and they get whacked by Boston in the regular season. But then they win game 1. And now they're trying to hang tough in game 2. So, we'll see how things continue to shake out. 39-30 Boston with 4:35 to play in the half. And then you got the Nuggets and Thunder coming up at 6:30. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number if you want to reach me. Feel free. If not, that's fine. I've got a 4-pack of tickets for the Hillsboro Hops. We give away a 4-pack so that you can sit in the Rip City Radio Row. We do that every week on the show. We are the home of the Hillsboro Hops, and I'm going to give those away coming up at 5. And then at 5:20, we'll head to Denver to talk about the Nuggets. I'm still blown away by that game that we saw in game 1. What a finish that was. We had the great finish last night with Indiana and Cleveland, and then that wild sequence at the end of the game in OKC.
Second free throw, Holmgren. Missed it again. Rebound down to Christian Brown. You got to hurry. 7 seconds. Front court over to Westbrook. Left side Gordon for the win. Yeah! Yeah! 2.8 seconds left coming back the other way. Williams from half court. Baked it no good at the horn. And the Denver Nuggets shock the Oklahoma City Thunder in game number 1. Final tonight, 121 to 119.
All right, that is Jason Kosmicki, voice of the Nuggets, on the call. And this right here? That's the same guy. That's Jason Kosmicki.
What was that one from, Chad? Do you remember?
I don't remember which game or which shot. It was from a few years ago, but it's the greatest, in my estimation, it's the greatest in the history of sports casting. I think
you've got some pretty amazing sound bites that you've got in your library there, Chad. I put that one up there with massage.
Oh, yeah, the creepy Rusty Harden.
Oh, absolutely. Classic. Gets me every time.
A massage.
Rusty Harden is the attorney for Deshaun Watson, the freak. And maybe Justin Tucker should reach out to Rusty Harden.
A massage.
The way he says massage, it almost sounds like he's saying sausage, like sausage.
A massage.
No, I do not want a massage, Rusty.
A massage.
His name's Rusty Harden.
A massage.
Now, Deshaun wants a
massage.
And so does Justin Tucker.
A massage.
16 massage therapists. Justin Tucker, unfortunate that his field goal percentage dropped to like 73%. The NFL is pretty simple. They'll let you get away with just about everything, including many weird massages. But as soon as you stop making kicks or making plays, you're done. You're done. This is also the gallery for my favorite Bob Kemp. That's what I think about the way Rusty Harden says.
A massage.
All right, we'll come back. We got a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops to sit in the Rip City Radio Row. I'll give those away. All you have to do is listen to me for your chance to win, and then we'll head to Denver at 5:20 to talk Nuggets Thunder Game 2, which is coming up tonight at 6:30. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. All right, what's up? 5 o'clock, Chad here. Check the NBA scoreboard. Celtics lead the Knicks 46-34 first half of Game 2 in Boston with 1:54 to play. And the Knicks have just gotten the dunk on the break. It's now a 10-point game with 1:48 remaining there at TD Garden. Bad news for the Golden State Warriors is Steph Curry has suffered a grade 1 hamstring strain, and that happened last night in the Game 1 victory over the Wolves. The expected recovery time, 7 to 10 days. He will not be available for Game 2 tomorrow. The most likely game where he could make a return would be Game 6 on the 18th. Second half of the doubleheader tonight, 6:30 on TNT. How about the Nuggets and Thunder from Oklahoma City? Thunder, a 10.5-point favorite. They're going to look to even up the series after dropping Game 1. We'll head to Denver at 5:20 and talk with Ryan Edwards and get a preview. Cowboys have acquired Steelers wideout George Pickens and Cam Rising from Utah retiring from football. All right, I appreciate Tony and Boring noticing my new hairdo. We got to talking about how often you keep your lettuce tight. I'm on a 3-week schedule. I go and see Sierra every 3 weeks. And of the simple pleasures in life, I would say that I enjoy haircuts are right at the top of the list. There are certain simple pleasures in life, like a good morning leak. You know, when you get up and your bladder's about to burst and you just stand there for it's like a 3-stager and it's finally over. It's like, oh, that felt good. But I would say haircuts are right up there at the top of the list. That facials from Julia are amazing. I like simple pleasures. The morning air and sun on the golf course as you're breathing the fresh air, spectacular. Chris Burkhart's going to join me in just a moment. By the way, Brendan said to slide to your left a little bit so you can be centered in the camera if you did not hear that. But first, we got a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops. Brendan, do you know what is the date of the game? I did not ask you ahead of time. What is the date of the game?
Yeah, we got this Saturday, Chad, taking on Eugene.
All right, Eugene this Saturday out at Hillsborough Ballpark. And we'll keep this very simple for you. The first caller to my telephone number, 503-248-0620, will get a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops, all right? Call now. I can't do it. I want to do it, but I can't. I got to protect my voice. 503-248-0620. Call now. First caller through gets a 4-pack of tickets for the Hillsborough Hops, and you can sit in the Rip City Radio Row. 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. Chris Burkhardt is with me now, fresh off your trip to Great Wolf Lodge. I have been up there multiple times with my daughter. Just her and I would go up and do the deal, and I know this is your first time there. I think it's a great spot because everything's kind of self-contained right there inside of the lodge. You got your room, they got Starbucks down below, and then they got the water park area. Like, I like the whole setup there. And then our favorite thing to do at night before bedtime is hit the game room. And there's a couple of games in there that I've mastered, so it spits out a billion tickets, and I just give them to my daughter.
Yeah, that's. I think we mastered the water slides and the wave pool. I am chlorined out after 2 days there. I swam more than I needed to. I'm exhausted.
Dude, don't you think that tornado slide is dope? The way you spit when it spits you out into that funnel.
It's like a movie. The way it pushes you out into that big room. It's like the Alice in Wonderland or something. Went down the rabbit hole. It's pretty wild.
Dude,
it's
I
fun
love
though.
That thing, man. Yeah, it's cool. It's a good setup. And then what I would do is right down the street, literally like a 1-minute drive. You got the McDonald's down there. So in the morning when Kayla was still sleeping, I'd bump down there to get breakfast for her. And I get my Starbucks, and then we were dialed in for the rest of the day.
There you go. That's the smart way to do it. It's economical. Now Not only did we do the swimming, my middle child, Brooklyn, she wanted to do that magic quest very, very badly.
Oh gosh, I was able to successfully talk my daughter out of it because I'd see the kids running around doing the magic quest. I'm like, I want no part of that.
Oh, it took us 2 days. Over 2 days, it took us like 4.5 hours.
Was it worth it?
She loved it. So her excitement made it worth it. My calves are burning. I thought I was going to rupture an Achilles at some point. So it was like we're at the 4th floor, and they're like, go back down to see this character at the 1st floor. So we run down there, and all he says is like, "Oh, good job. Now go back to the 4th floor." And you're like, "Oh God, no, here we go." It was exhausting, but it was fun. It was fun.
Last time we were up there was in July, so we made a swing by it was like July 2nd, so we made a swing by right a couple of miles away is the Indian firework. It's like an outdoor mall of fireworks.
Okay.
So you can get your all the things you're not supposed to have.
All the things you're not supposed to have.
Yep.
There you go. That sounds fun.
Yeah, so that's great. That's good, man. I had fun. It's fun up there.
It was. It was a lot of fun.
Not the cheapest family experience you could ever have.
Hey, at least it wasn't like, $50 for a pair of wolf ears like some entertainment destinations that I also love and am willing to pay for at the end of the day. But no, it was all right. It was worth it.
I think they give, when you check into your room, I think they give the wolf ears for free.
You
don't
get
they?
those wolf ears, yeah.
The girls love that. Don't
Yeah,
they?
Dad had to put them on.
Did you get the room with the bunk beds?
Oh yes.
Oh, good.
Which they love. Their little wolf den.
Now, was Mom a participant in the water slides?
No, because she was, as was I, but I think she was mainly drawn over to the kiddie pool because my youngest, who's 2, was like, "Mom, swim," and wander over there and go play in the kiddie pool.
The one thing that my daughter would like to do is like they got that area over there by the kiddie slides where they got that this bucket at the very top of it.
Oh, yes.
That fills up with water, and then as soon as it gets too full, it tips over and like a billion gallons of water just pour down over the top of everyone. Like my daughter thought that was the greatest thing ever.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, for sure.
Good.
I thought it was fun, too, the first time it hit me. And I didn't see it. When you haven't been there before and you come just in time to not see it and then it catches you by surprise, which it did me, it was kind of cool.
But you know what's funny? I noticed this, too. You were talking about this. Like, after a full day of running around with my daughter in the water park, I don't know what it is about being in swimming and being in the water. Like, those are some of the most peaceful nights of rest I've ever had. I lay my head back, and I'm just gone.
I like to have noise when I sleep. It's usually like a TV or something. Like I fall asleep religiously to The Simpsons, right? Because I've seen
I'm the same way. I need ancillary sound.
I just need the sound. I don't need to watch it. I just need the sound, right? I didn't even get any sound set up in the hotel room. I laid on the floor or laid on the bed, and it was done. I mean, out like a light.
I wanted to ask you about your experience. You went over last week and had a chance to tour. I just drove by it yesterday on my way out to Forest Hills Golf Course. How nice. You did a full tour with the Hillsboro Hops in their new stadium.
Yep.
How nice is the setup and how it's coming around?
I think Hops fans are going to be pleasantly surprised. Like a lot of people at first, like, "Oh, you're upgrading a stadium. What's wrong with Hillsboro Ballpark right now? It's doing a great job." Well, this thing has a major league feel to it. It's really nice. And you go in, and we came in through right field and center field, and we go in, and we end up walking over to where home plate is. They have it marked off with paint right there. You look down the lines, and they have that second tier of seating now that they've added. And I just looked at Kale Wambacher, who was right there. I'm like, it is amazing how much just adding a tier of seats adds to the grandeur of the field. And he's like, no, it does. It absolutely sets it apart. And I think the best part is you could start to see what they were doing, when they were piecing it together. But when you're talking to Kale and the crew, they're talking about they're not trying to have the best facility in high A baseball. They're trying to have one of the best facilities in all of minor league baseball. And there's a vision there, which is really cool. So when it's all said and done, it's going to be a great spot for, I think, baseball players are going to love it. And then I think fans are absolutely going to dig it.
How sweet is that going to look at night when you're driving down 26 and you look over and you're looking directly into the ballpark? Like, that's not going to suck.
That's going to be one of those things that catches your eye. I mean, you every time I go down 26 right now, you look over anyway just to see what you could see, even if there's something in, the football side of Hillsboro Stadium, right? But the fact that you can sit there and you could drive down, you could see the ball game going on, see the fans, and the bigger picture that they have, because when they released their last renders, I mean, there was a concert stage in center field, right? Like the idea of that they can bring in more stuff there than just baseball is really cool. And then selfishly, in the shoes I'm in, I envision, OSAA state championships going on at that ballpark. So there's a lot that you can do, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, because one time I called the 2A OSAA title game, which was down at Volcano Stadium.
Yep.
Down in Kaiser. That ballpark's not exactly going to be like this ballpark.
No,
on Hillsboro.
it's not going to be the same. And then you sit there and you look at like why Eugene is losing the Emeralds, right? Because they couldn't get their funding for a new stadium, and PK Park is not up to snuff for the Major League Baseball standards. And you sit there and you go into this stadium that is only 50% done, and you see why. Because you can feel the difference between that and PK Park already. And that's just a stadium that's not done versus one that's playing, hosting the Emeralds right now.
Have you been to PK Park yet?
Oh, yeah, I've been down there.
I haven't been there yet.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. But again, with their new standards that Major League Baseball is throwing in there, you got to be top notch, and sharing a facility makes that difficult. So,
Brendan, how nice is Goss down in Corvallis?
I think Goss has just more of its great historical feel. I mean, I think it's an awesome place to watch a baseball game. And they've continued to add seats, continued to add, more and more standing room, like down the lines and stuff. I mean, if there's a cash cow that Oregon State's going to protect, it's baseball, and they make sure it's a good experience down there at Goss.
All right. The second round so far is not disappointed. How about the finish that we saw with Oklahoma City and Denver? And then what we got last night from freaking Indiana, taking the stranglehold on Cleveland.
I didn't think I was going to watch the away team win 4 games on game 1 there. And then is Aaron Gordon having one of the best postseason runs ever? I mean, he gets the dunk, which might be the most millisecond timed before the light went off buzzer beater of all time, right? And then he gets that 3-pointer. I mean, Denver, that's a big time win. And then, as you said, the Pacers getting the stranglehold, going 2 games up on the Cavs.
Cavs are done now.
That's wild. That's hard to come back from, especially with the way Indy's playing. So it's been a wild series all the way around.
I couldn't believe the end of that game. You grab your own miss off the rebound, and you go out and shoot a step back 3, game over.
I mean, that's a legend made right there, right?
And then I'm thinking, how dumb are the Kings to let go of 2 incredible guards? What a dumb franchise,
right?
man. What are they doing?
Absolutely. It is pretty wild. You sit there and you let both those guys go. And there was talk even at the time that people thought that it was the wrong move to make Haliburton the one that they decided to pass on, and then they ended up getting rid of both of them, right? So it is pretty wild to think what they've done there. But yeah, this entire NBA playoffs, Chad, it's just been wild. I didn't think Golden State with all their holes was going to go in and grab a 1-0 series lead over Minnesota. It's been wild.
Well, the Celtics are staying true to form. So after going 15 of 60 from 3 in game 1, they're up by 9 at halftime. They're 5 of 21 from downtown. The analytics are simple. Keep shooting threes, and based on variance, and eventually the shots will fall. That's just how they do it.
I just still don't like it. If that ain't falling, go find a shot that will fall, man. I think there's something to be said. Just go get a nice, simple layup or a mid-range shot, because once a shooter sees one fall, I think their entire game can change. Just jacking it up nonstop is wild to me.
You like the Blazers using, how about Tamani Kamara getting to sit at the podium there at the draft lottery? That's kind of cool.
I envision, do you remember the old Mariner commercials? First off, the Mariners PR team, when they would run those team-centric commercials, was the best. But they had the Kazuhiro Sasaki with his stare.
Yeah.
Like he stares at the Pepsi machine and it gets scared, so it dispenses a drink for him. And then it ends with like Brett Boone trying to do it and it's not working. Like all I envisioned was that type of commercial, but it's Tumani Kamara just like staring at the numbers until and it comes in and it's one number off of what the Blazers need and he stares harder and it clicks to the right number.
I love that.
That's what I'm envisioning.
Oh, speaking of the Mariners, they have won 9 straight series for the first time since 2001. It's only May. When can we start to buy into what they're doing? Like August?
So game 1 of the ALDS, that's when you can buy into their playoff hype.
All right, we'll come back. We're going to head to Denver. Chris Burkhardt, appreciate your time, buddy.
Always.
All right. Ryan Edwards previewing Game 2, Nuggets and Thunder next on the Rip City Drive.
Second free throw, Holmgren. Missed it again. Rebound down to Christian Brown. You got to hurry. 7 seconds. Front court over to Westbrook. Left side, Gordon for the win. Yeah! 2.8 seconds left. Coming back the other way. Williams from half court. Baked it no good at the horn. And the Denver Nuggets shock the Oklahoma City Thunder in game number 1. Final tonight, 121 to 119.
Well, I tell you what, I'd take another finish like that tonight. What a great game that was. We head now to Denver. Joining us from 850 KOA, our good friend Ryan Edwards. Ryan, I mean, that game was just awesome. And how about Jokic? 42 points, 22 rebounds, and 6 assists. He just continues to impress. I now know that he is one of the best basketball players I've seen in my lifetime. Awesome.
Tremendous. And it's unfortunate he's not going to win the MVP this year because SGA is. And it's such a remarkable thing. And, I mean, listen, SGA might go off tonight, and maybe they have a better plan for Nikola Jokic. I don't know. I don't know if they have really the ability to stay with him either way, but it's just a weird deal because Nikola Jokic had the best season of his career. He's a 3-time MVP, should have been 4 and should be 5, but it won't matter because people had already decided. But I did wonder after that game, and it's one game of a 7-game series, if some of those voters might have been sort of regretting their vote.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm with you, too. I thought it was ridiculous when Barkley and Malone won MVPs during Michael Jordan's run. I'm just a big fan of if you know who the best player on the planet is and the most important player to his team is, regardless of where that team is at, just continue to vote for him. I think Jokic is by far the best player on the planet, and he continues to prove it night in and night out. But what were your thoughts on the way – what I was told by someone that I respect, Ryan, is that a lot of head coaches would not feel comfortable letting a player handle a timeout and talk to his team the way we saw Jokic do it. So I thought it was pretty cool that Coach Adelman had the wherewithal to know that his star player needed to talk to his team. What did you think about that as it transpired?
I thought it was cool. I thought it was funny a couple nights ago when he was interviewed by the TNT group. They asked him about that, and he said, it's just the camera's on me now more. I've always been doing this. And I'm like, I don't know, man. It just seemed like more than usual. And boy, he was so animated, and I think it's tremendous. I mean, understanding that you are the face of the franchise, you're the best player, as you just said, in the NBA, you need him to take on a vocal role. It can't be just I go to work and then I go home and I go to my horses. Like, you've got to do more. And they expected that out of him, but he's just doing that. He's just doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's the void that was filled when Michael Malone was fired. And David Adelman, I think, is doing a great job, but he's doing a great job in concert with Nikola Jokic. And there's something to the fact that when he speaks, they listen. And I know it's a simple thing to say, but I love what Jamal Crawford said the other day. Just because he has lips, they listen to what he's talking. He's not speaking just because he has lips. I'm butchering that quote. But the point of it is like when Nikola Jokic speaks, those guys, they shut up, they listen. You can see from the entire bench all the way around him, there wasn't a single person that didn't have eyes locked on everything he was saying.
I wanted to ask you about Coach Adelman in regard to a couple of decisions. One, keeping Brown in the game in the final 4 minutes with Porter Jr. on the bench. That paid off and really was a smart decision. But also that final play when Chet Holmgren missed the 2 free throws, what I thought was impressive, boy, as soon as Brown got the rebound, he got it straight to Russ. Aaron Gordon spaced the floor and got over behind the three-point line on the left side, and Russ made the good decision and made a great pass to set up Gordon for the game winner. That's clearly coaching. What are the thoughts locally on the job Adelman's done so far?
People are pretty excited. I mean, there's a possibility that we're looking at our next head coach. I mean, yes. I think you'd like to see them win this series. I think that there's still a little bit more to work with. You certainly don't have to hire him right now after one win over the Oklahoma City Thunder and then the series win against the Clippers. But, I mean, he's the guy that's been preparing for this moment his entire career. And he certainly got the lineage, right, with his dad being a Hall of Famer. I'd say that, it's like, okay, well, you galvanized the team by firing the coach when you did. The team is galvanized by that. They're closing ranks. They have experience. They know what it's like to play in these kinds of games. So you don't want to get too far down the road because certainly we've seen examples, especially in the NFL, of hiring the interim being a bad idea. But I think in the NBA, it's going to be a little bit of a different deal because it's a league run by the players. It's not like the NFL where coaching is such a significant deal. This one is like, hey, if you've got great players and you have a coach that really kind of just pushes the right buttons at the right time, you can win a lot of games doing that. You can win, maybe even win championships. So I think locally we're pretty excited about it. But, if they lose the next 4 games and get bounced by the Thunder, I'm sure that the temperament and feeling will change immediately.
Well, how do you see the series now after game 1? Meaning going in, I thought it would be a tough, road to hoe for Denver because Oklahoma City was so dominant on both ends of the floor. But I feel like after the game 1 win, at least the door's open now for a potential upset, right? How do you see it now after game 1?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely open. I had the Thunder winning in 6 when we did our predictions. I guess I'm sort of sticking with that, but it's definitely open the possibility to go to Game 7. And if a game goes to Game 7, it's really anybody's game. I think more than anything, the depth thing is going to be fascinating to watch because Michael Porter Jr. is basically playing with one arm out there, and you're running an 8-man rotation. Now, are you going to maybe extend that a little bit? Maybe you bring in Jalen Pickett. Maybe you give some run to some other guys. Maybe. But on a couple nights ago on Wednesday night, or I guess it would be Wednesday now, Monday night, they had just the 8-man rotation. Michael Porter Jr. didn't play in the fourth quarter, and the Oklahoma City Thunder have an unbelievable level of depth. They go 9 deep. They can go 10 deep, and that's just going to be a problem for the Nuggets if the series goes to 6 or 7. There's just only so many ways you can hide the fact that one of your starting players, the guy that you do count on, especially for offense, is just not going to be able to play at the level you need him to. That I think is going to be pretty much the deciding factor in this. However, how the Nuggets can manage Michael Porter Jr. and manage the minutes they can't use him is going to be significant.
That's a good point. We're talking with Ryan Edwards, 850 KOA in Denver. What's been the key to Aaron Gordon's improvement with his shooting? Like, how has he evolved into becoming a big shot maker the way he has?
Well, he's just they called him the soul of the team, right? And he has improved this year. He absolutely has improved, especially from the beyond the arc. He's just sort of a lunch pail guy, and I think there's just a mentality with this team that kind of starts with Nikola Jokic. They're not flashy. Aaron Gordon was the man. Out in Orlando, I mean, man, you've been following the game a long time. He was the man. He was the lead scorer. He was the best player. He came to Denver in a trade, and he had to kind of reinvent himself, and he had to kind of figure out what the role really is for him. And now he's turned into probably one of the most celebrated guys we have here in Denver, but maybe the most underrated player really in all 4 of the major teams. I mean, they don't win a championship without him. They don't win a championship without several players, but he is the soul. He is the engine of that team. And, boy, I mean, that was just such a massive shot. And if I'd have told you, hey, the Nuggets are going to win on a three-pointer near the buzzer, who's it going to be? You would probably gotten through 3, maybe 4 players before you got to Aaron Gordon. And I think that just says so much about how much they believe in him.
Yeah, it was such a great shot. Hey, what's the fans' reaction to Russell Westbrook? I respect him because he plays so hard every single night, and I think a lot of guys around the league respect him because of the type of octane that he runs at, which is nice. But it's so crazy because sometimes you get good, sometimes you get bad. There were probably a couple of games in the Clippers series where he could have been named co-MVP of both teams. But he's really played well for them. What's the reaction to Russ?
Man, that's perfectly said. Co-MVP because, it's controlled chaos to a certain level.
Yeah.
And he had a great quote the other night when he was asked about what he brings to the team, and he's like, sometimes it's a made 3, sometimes a missed 3, sometimes it's a turnover, sometimes it's an assist. And it's like it perfectly encapsulates him. I think that there's been moments where you love having him, especially coming off the bench, bringing that energy, bringing the intensity has been so significant. But then the other side of that is the mistakes that you just have to live with when it comes to Russell Westbrook. And I think overall, and especially this playoff series, you've been happy to have him. But he missed the layups, man. He misses layups. He's just going to do that, and you accept it to a certain level. But it's so frustrating when it happens. Like they lost that Minnesota game the last time they played the Timberwolves, because he drove to the basket, missed the layup. Timberwolves get the ball back. They move down the court, and they make a three-pointer, and they win that game in overtime. And it's just one of those deals where you're like, I mean, come on, Russ. It's a layup in the NBA.
I know.
Like, but you just know, like, hey, that's just the Russ Westbrook experience. So I say today, this is a day-to-day thing. I guess my point. It's a day-to-day thing. If he goes out there and he has a couple of bonehead plays tonight and they lose the game, tomorrow people will be like, I don't know about Russ. We got to rein this guy back in. But if he goes out and plays like he did on Monday night, we're going to continue to celebrate him because he was a huge reason why they won that game.
Dude, I'm sure you saw, but that video of, I think it was like the Nuggets TV crew when he got the ball after the rebound by Brown, they're like, no, because they thought for sure that he was going to try and, put up a shot there and score, but he made the right play, a smart pass and a good pass to Gordon for the game winner. I wanted to ask you too, Ryan, have you talked to anyone that knows or has spoken with, how's John Elway doing after that horrific accident involving his friend Jeff Spurbeck with the golf cart where he passed away?
Yeah, he's devastated, as you can imagine, and that whole group. I never got a chance to meet Jeff, but I know enough people that did know Jeff, and it's just one of those. It's just a devastating thing when you think about it in terms of how close their relationship was, and just a terrible, terrible accident that. It's just that's what it is. So, from my understanding, they've been pretty private about all of it. He's put out a statement through his lawyer. And they've put out a couple of statements. Obviously, the police are still investigating to a certain level, but they've ruled it an accident, and it's just very tragic.
No question. Well, I'm sure glad the Nuggets won Game 7 because I was stunned at the finish of Game 7 with the Avalanche and Stars. Like, how do you explain that? Where you're in control, up 2-0, and then all of a sudden, it's like the floodgates opened and they score 4 goals in what felt like 20 seconds, and the game's over. Like I don't even know how to explain that. What happened?
Well, and the heartbreaker was the guy that got a hat trick was Mikko Rantanen, who was kind of an all-time top 10 avs of all time. They traded him in January, 6 weeks before the trade deadline, and then he comes back and is like the deciding factor in this series. You traded him to Carolina. You never thought you'd ever see him again in this division, but then he ends up getting traded before the trade deadline from Carolina to Dallas, which is like the worst team.
Did they trade him?
It's the rival.
Did Carolina trade him because they didn't think they were going to be able to pay him, or what?
That's it. He basically admitted to them that he had no intention of signing an extension. They, I think, in a lot of ways panicked, recognizing, hey, if we don't trade him now, we get nothing for him. And so it was one of those deals where they just realized, hey, we kind of screwed this thing up. The trade happened, and we didn't. Is that he was going to stick around, and we've already given up so much for him. Now we're going to have to recoup whatever we can because he's going to be gone after this year, and we're going to be screwed. So they basically panicked.
All right. Well, any word on Bo Nix and his off season right now? And I'm just excited about season number 2 with Bo. But you hear any word on Bo and how things are progressing right now?
Yeah, I think. He's been around in and around the facility. He's gone on a couple of vacations, but they've actually joked several times now that they have to keep telling him to go home because he likes to be around a lot, and he's already worked on this offseason. We got rookie minicamp this weekend, which we're all very excited to see the rookies and see what they're all about. But no, hey man, there's a lot of optimism on the Broncos. As you know, it's they had a really good offseason. They filled some holes in free agency. They had what I believe is a really strong draft with some guys some high floor players that can contribute in year one and some developmental players as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of optimism. When you go from 5.5 projected wins last year to 9.5, that's a massive jump from year 1 to year 2 of a player. So, yeah, we're amped out here for the Broncos.
Well, Ryan, as always, I appreciate the time. It's always great to chat with you. Enjoy the game tonight. And this should be a fun series. But, man, it's like, I know you know this, but just like with Elway or any of the other greats that have come through the town, it's like we just got to sit back and enjoy Jokic for as long as he plays because we're going to look back and be like, okay, he was, he's playing himself right into a top 10 all-timer, right? That's how good he is.
Yes.
No doubt.
Really. And you're right. We oftentimes judge these things after the fact or learn to appreciate them. And the same thing with Peyton Manning when he was here.
Yeah.
I just sort of took for granted it's like, hey, this is just how good the Broncos are going to be. And then they go almost a decade without really solid quarterback play at all. Starting caliber quarterback play. it's the same thing with Nikola Jokic. We're going to look back and just be like, man, this guy averaged a triple-double. And it's not to say that there haven't other players, but to do it from the center position, the way he's done it, and to have the mentality that he does where he has a killer instinct. I mean, you see he has a killer instinct, but he's not flashy. He's not out there talking about it. He just does it. And it's a blast. Tonight, I have no idea, literally no idea how the Thunder are going to hang with him. He played bully ball on Monday night against them, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of things they throw at him because they had no answer. And it's funny because they spent this offseason not just trying to get better, but get better to play the Nuggets, knowing that was one of the teams in the way. That's why they added Hartenstein and they added Caruso. I don't know if it's enough, and we're going to find out a little bit more in a couple hours.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Ryan Edwards, 850 KOA. Buddy, thanks for the time. Enjoy the game, and I'll talk to you soon.
Anytime, brother. Thanks.
There you go. Ryan Edwards, love him, and what a fun time it is right now with the Nuggets. Nikola Jokic is a superstar. So good, so dominant. All right, 503-248-0620 is the telephone number. Back tomorrow with the Rip City Drive at 3 o'clock. Sean and Sandy's very happy because he won the Hops tickets for the game coming up on Friday. That's amazing. How can I order something on Amazon like 2 hours ago and it's already been delivered to my home?
Amazing world we live in now.
No, but they just sent me a picture. It's like sitting on my doorstep.
I mean, you think that's crazy, Chad? Wait until they have the drones that can literally have things at your house even less when they start removing the people part of it.
Well, I'm not a fan of that. I don't want drones delivering stuff to me.
It's like AI, right? You know, it's maybe coming regardless.
Have you got anything positive to say? You just went from drones to AI. I'm not a fan of that either. It creeps me out.
I mean, it's fair.
Here's
get
the main question. Can AI ever do a talk show on its own?
It's entirely possible in the future, don't you think?
No, I don't. No, I don't want to believe that.
I mean, you never know. You never know.
All right. Hey, Brendan, you better watch out. I'm going to silence you forever, okay? I don't need your input about drones. That would be creepy to, like, look out. It's like, what was that, a Chinese spy? No, it's just Amazon delivering your energy drinks.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
But, like, do they have drones that do that now?
Yeah, I think it's in some of the bigger cities like Chicago, New York, those kind of things. It's very beta stages, but yeah, like Amazon drones exist.
But is there someone flying the drone, or is it just like, is it computer flying the drone to the location?
I do not know the answer to that. I would guess probably someone flying it, but maybe eventually more computer-based.
I did see a drone laser light show kind of a deal up at a Mariner game one night.
Oh, yeah. No, I've heard of those. Yeah. And how was that?
It was all right. Yeah. I mean, I was impressed. They did they had like a King Griffey. It was just pretty cool the way they did it. I was just kind of like sitting around like trying to figure out what was going on. I did have, when I was down in the Bay Area, there was a guy that I knew that lived right next to the Giants ballpark. They've changed names so many times, I don't know what to call it now. But he flew a drone from the deck in his apartment over into the crib, and we took a look around. Like, that was fun.
Okay, that is pretty cool.
Have you ever flown a drone?
No, I've been with somebody, like stood next to somebody when they've flown one, had like a range of like 1.5 miles. We did it over in Central Oregon, like by like the Madras, Lake Billy Chinook area. So that was kind of cool just to see like a bird's eye view. But no, like I said, they're kind of expensive toys and very expensive if you crash them, Chad.
No, but like, how much does I'm not a drone guy. How much does a drone cost? Is it like $1,000 or more?
No, I mean, nowadays you can get a pretty cheap one for a couple $100, $200, $300. You know, when my buddy bought his, this was back in like 2018, they were maybe closer to $4,000 or $5,000. But like anything else with technology, they've come down quite a bit in price.
You can get one for, now the cut one that's like $200. Is that like a Safeway Select brand or?
I mean,
the Radio Shack version.
I mean, the Amazon Select brand, right? I mean, Amazon.
Do they have Amazon? Do they have an Amazon Select?
Yeah, like Amazon has their own brand, and as far as many different things. And I was looking at some different stuff the other day and saw like just how many different kinds. Like they have drones, Chad, that can be as simple as like, hey, I want to, have a drone above my kids' soccer game to like, hey, I want detail of like what's going on like in this. I mean, it's insane the amount of technology that's available at our fingertips.
If they had a Kirkland drone, my dad would buy it just because it says Kirkland on it.
Oh, yeah. No, Costco brand loyalty, Chad. I mean, I'm all about that. I mean, you never know.
I need to find a drone. Like when my daughter starts driving, I would probably buy an expensive drone to follow her around to make sure she's not getting herself into nonsense.
I don't think you'd be the only dad that would be on board with that, Chad. You might be onto something.
It's actually not a bad idea. And that way I can keep an eye on any young males that want to spend too much time around her. Like the important things in life. It's weird. Like when I ask my daughter if she's got interest in any boys, she's like, oh, no, Dad. But then when she's around her friend and her friend's talking about boys that she likes, like, whatever. I'm not even going to think about that kind of nonsense right now. All right, we'll come back. Checking in, the Celtics are on top of the Knicks, 68-50, 4:10 to play in the third quarter, and they just got another dunk at the rim from Porzingis. 20-point lead for the Celtics, so they're cruising right now. The question is, are the Thunder going to be able to dominate the Nuggets tonight and even up that series? You got the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing on your home of the Trailblazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, the Knicks trying to hang tough. 6.8 seconds remaining in the third. And Boston right now up by 12. It's 73-61. I got to tell you what, so far I've been impressed by the way New York has battled early on in this series. They got game one. They're trying to hang tough in game two. And Boston, of course, unlike, they don't want to become like Cleveland and drop their first two games at home. So at the end of the third quarter, it's 73-61 Celtics. Nuggets and Thunder will tip coming up at 6:30. That game also on TNT. And coming up here in about 5 minutes, we're going to hand it off to Rich Burke as the Hops get ready to take on Eugene and bounce back from last night's 9-7 loss. So that's coming up here in just a few minutes. Tomorrow, we are back with the Rip City Drive, 3 o'clock here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. And there you have it. I think Michael Holton will join me in studio tomorrow for a little Holton on Hoops. And Celeste Trapp also in studio during the 4 o'clock hours. So that's what's coming up tomorrow. Big thanks to Michael Allen Harrison for joining me yesterday as he gets ready for the final 5 shows coming up this weekend over the course of Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And he's got a show on Friday, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. The 25-year anniversary of 10 Grands finally coming to an end as he looks to continue to move on and find other things of interest to him. And I'm just enjoying these NBA playoffs, so we'll continue to watch that. And that's pretty much the deal right now. I'm pretty much knee-deep. It's nice. Last couple of years, not so into the NBA playoffs, but there's been so many fascinating series. And what's Jokic's follow-up to that 42-22-6 game that we saw in Game 1 against the Thunder? Other than that, the Cowboys made a big move. They got George Pickens. The question is, can he really turn around his off-the-field activity, being more reliable, being more of a, teammate that shows up on time, puts in the work, and can fit into that culture down there in Dallas. I mean, that's why the Steelers were willing to move on from him, especially after the acquisition of DK Metcalf. And, of course, the biggest story in sports, Steph Curry is out for at least a week with that hamstring strain. It's a grade 1, according to most of the doctors I've seen comment on it. The typical recovery time is like 7 to 10 days. But the Warriors, of course, are not going to rush him back because they know long-term they have no chance without Steph. You don't want to re-aggravate the hamstring, so they'll take their time. But the earliest possible return for Curry in this series would appear to be Game 6, which is on May 18th. And then you got Game 7 after that. But, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play again in the series. I think the key for Golden State is to make sure that, get one of the next 3 so you can, have the series evened up at 2. You got a Game 5 and a Game 6 situation where maybe Steph can make the return, and then you give yourself an opportunity to win the series and move on. And I think for the Thunder tonight, I said the same thing about the Knicks-Celtic game. The Thunder need to come out early and set the tone and make sure that they keep that intensity and continue to execute on both ends. The last thing you want is to put yourself in a pressure-packed situation in a tight game in the fourth quarter to where your younger players. Remember, Denver has more, battle-tested playoff experience than the Thunder do. And that's been the big knock on OKC. You just don't want to see those guys in a tight game in a must-win situation, knowing if you go down 0-2 at home, you're done. And so I think it's important for the Thunder to get off to a great start in the first quarter, have a double-digit lead going into halftime so you feel comfortable about your where you sit, where you stand. And hopefully Chet Holmgren can recover from that, rough ending to the game where he missed not 1 but 2 free throws as a 75% free throw shooter, which allowed Denver to have a chance to win the game. So that will be fun to watch. That'll be fun to check out. I did finish the Andor series last night because they dropped 3-3-3. I thought the series was great. And now I think tonight I'll probably watch Rogue One. Cassie and the Star said the best thing to do based on the way the series played out is to watch Rogue One after you see Andor, because then a lot of things will start to make sense. So I think I'll probably check that tonight just to, bring that all together. But I thought Andor was terrific. And now we got to wait for, I think, the next big thing. Hey, Brendan, is the next big deal will be the Mandalorian movie, or is there another series coming up?
Yeah, no, I said I'm excited for that. The the Mando movie is gonna be sweet. And
no,
get
I know
me
it's
some
gonna
more
be sweet,
Grogu.
but I asked you.
We were talking about Andor off air.
Brendan.
I'm all in on Star Wars
Brendan.
right now, my man.
Brendan, do you have your headphones in?
I do now.
Okay. Well, I'm talking to you, and you're just ignoring me. How do you guys function without headphones? How do you not have headphones in during a radio show? I'm
right
literally
here.
talking to you, and you can't hear me. Okay. Let me go back. You didn't even answer my question. So, because you didn't have your headphones in. It drives me crazy. You and Burkhart both, everybody. And
Not
Shacker,
like-
too. Shacker's a violator, too. So you and Shacker on my no-no list for not wearing headphones. My question was, what is next? Is the next, are they going to do another series, or are we going to get the Mandalorian movie next? What's next?
The movie is next. Yeah, there's a tentative hold on if they'll go back to making the show on a series, like TV series again. Probably going to see how the movie does and go from there.
All right, it's time to head out to the ballpark. Let's bring in Rich Burke as the Hops try to bounce back from their loss last night to Eugene with first pitch coming up just a few minutes away. Rich, good evening, my friend.
Hey, good to talk to you. Did you watch SportsCenter yesterday?
I did watch SportsCenter yesterday.